Welcome to the Fifth Trooper podcast.
Well, hi, everybody. This is Jay Shalansky from the Fifth Trooper. Joining me today is Evan from the Fifth Trooper. Say hello, Evan.
Hello, Evan.
So here we are. Another week, another podcast.
Yeah, so we're running into the problem is running into the slow, there's no news, there's no, nothing new, right? It's just kind of a dry season.
Oh, there's something new.
Oh, what's that?
Clone Wars is delayed forever.
Yeah, so...
Hope you didn't want that, guys.
You know, God bless everyone trying to make it work and come out, but it's so scattershot at this point. Like, Miniatures Market sending it out early by accident, maybe, or not, or who knows.
Yeah, I mean, listen, first it was September, early September, then it was late September, then it was October 4th, now it's October, god dang never. So, enjoy.
Straight never. Yeah, we were talking about how it's just kind of a bummer.
Oh, by the way, did you get dewbacks too? Because those are never coming.
Oh, jeez. Hand-packed dewbacks. No, it just stinks. Like, it's... the problem is when compared to their rival, right? Games Workshop, right? Yeah. No joke. So, man, you know what happened 2 weeks ago? Or this is about a month ago. They had 2 weeks before it came out, the Raven Guard Codex and model. Shrike, their chapter guy, model for him, picture painted, done, article about him. The book, article done, 2 weeks, you got it. Right? The next one is the Iron Fists, I think, or Imperial Fist, one of them. The other one, dude looks like Duke Nukem in an armor suit. Got him. Book comes out, got him, 2 weeks, got him. Beastgrave. Beastgrave is actually their longest thing they've shown early stuff for before because normally it's like 2 or 3 weeks they show you it, then it comes out. But
sure.
Like that model, if FFG did that, I'd be totally cool with that because it'd be at least it's coming, right? Like it's on the boat already. There's no like...
Well, at that point, if it's a 2 week, it's not even on the boat.
Yeah, it's like...
It's already heading to distribution, yeah.
Yeah.
Because boat is generally from China is about 4 weeks. And so...
So it's just bing, bing, boom. So I used to, as much as I used to bash on FFG just because they're expensive. Like, that's really it.
Games Workshop, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Games Workshop, my bad. But man, they are just clockwork. When they show you something, they're
a well-oiled machine. It's interesting to me, and maybe because of the recent turnover or whatever has been going on over there. And you know, I try to only rag on them when they deserve it, and this is somewhere where they deserve it. Their ops center, where it's the ordering, the getting the product, making sure it's the right product, making sure everything's copacetic, has really been taking a real crap lately.
Yeah, it's just a bummer. Like I only complain about it because I care, because I actually really do love the product and the company.
Yeah.
And so when you log in like, oh, Fifth Trooper's complaining about something the FG does. Normally we're pretty fair, I think. There's very rarely that they had like a misstep that we really just jumped on them all over for. That was something minor.
Yeah, no, I think we try to fairly.
And this is kind of a bummer because I've got guys who are switching over from playing less 40k more Legion, and they're like, hey, they're asking me when's this coming out, and I'm like, dude, I have no idea. And they're like, oh, because they pre-ordered it all through our store, right? The LGS. Right.
Well, and the problem is it's not just when's it coming out. It just looks bad because then it's like, well, if they're having problems getting a major release out, then when am I going to, how am I going to get into this? And when am I going to get everything that I should be getting?
And I get the questions like, hey, I see people have these already. Where are they getting them? Like, oh, they probably got them from Gen Con. Like, oh, they did early release. Normally early releases are like a couple weeks, not months, right? Or if you go to like like Nova, for example, had a special lieutenant model. Lieutenant's already out. Rules for him exist, and there's already 3 or 4 different lieutenant models out.
For what?
40K.
Okay.
But you got a special looking one for going to Nova and the Forge World store, right? So you got an early release to that model, but it doesn't change the game, right? It's just a cool looking thing.
Yeah. It's
so you're not missing out on anything, right? You're just getting a different looking guy. It's the same thing they do with like the Vader and the Obi-Wan, but you're not missing a whole, like someone doesn't have a whole 2 armies like months ahead of time. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's super interesting. And it just listen, I'm sure they're trying hard. There's a lot of logistical things that go together with that. It just seems as of late, maybe, this is me just thinking, that maybe they bit off a little bit more than they can chew with adding on a couple factions. But the problem is we're talking about this like it's a Legion specific issue, but really this, I mean, you would know better than any of us, this has been happening with X-Wing lately too.
Oh geez, man, there's a whole debacle. Not Wave 5 was fine, but Wave 4 was like so it got to everywhere but the US, but unless you were Barnes & Noble, and we was kind of working out with some of my friends, so Barnes & Noble's distribution. I have a root beer float me, folks.
Names and words are tough.
Little rough right now. They ship in through Canada, so they got their stuff in through Canada, and there's this whole thing like. So I got into a lot of them, the games I play through Barnes & Noble because I'd walk in there, get a coffee. I'm like, oh, that's where I got into X-Wing. I'm like, oh, X-Wing, that sounds cool. I'll buy the starter. So I walked in, I bought a couple Naboo fighters and some drones, and man, did the internet blow up. Not that I bought anything, but that you could buy them really there and not at your local game store. And I'm like, there are kind of my local game store sometimes for the stuff I want. So that was a whole, like, the thing blew up, and then Barnes & Noble had it like a month ahead of a local game store. It was just nuts. Like, it's just this, and then so that X-Wing thing, and then this Legion thing's just been kind of crazy.
Listen, I think there's a lot of people out there with loud voices that are righteous when it serves them. And, when it comes down to it, I mean, really just do whatever makes sense for you, and price-wise or availability-wise. And, yeah, it's weird right now. Like, I don't know. I've just felt like, and maybe it's the weird releases and the fact that we haven't gotten anything in a while. And, yeah, because we're pretty much gone all of September without something, right?
Yes, I don't believe anything's released this month.
Because Shores, when did Shores come out? The end of August, I think so. Or something like that. I can't remember. But, like, I don't know. It was funny. Evan and I were talking about, like, kind of prepping for the show and what we were going to talk about today. And I was thinking back, a year ago when we started this podcast, we had Kyle he's now from Notorious Scoundrels, but when he was running his Never Tell Me the Odds blog, we had him on, and we were talking about how, like, it felt a little shaky because I think it was like 4 months at that time since we had a release, and we were like, what is this game really a thing? Or
yeah.
And so it seems like, and now this isn't as extreme because they've been putting out articles and stuff, but like why is fall tripping them up ever? You know what I mean? And maybe it's just because, I don't know. My gut is telling me they're trying too much. Like, so if you think about it, you have the core set, you have the dewbacks, which you had the debacles. So now those are wrong. So now they have to redo all those. Those were supposed to come out with Shores, right?
Yep.
Missed that deadline. You have the 2 new operatives. You have Luke Vader operatives. You have C-3PO, R2-D2. You have the bunker. You have
the unit expansions.
Expansions, right. Like, you have all this stuff that they had, like what was it, August? They just, like, plowed us with news articles and, like, all these releases and all this crazy stuff that's going on, and then, like, trying to fulfill on those promises isn't really working out for them. And, listen, my view of this has been, this is the second time now. Well, let me back up. I like that Matt Holland is out there telling us what's going on.
Yeah, the transparency.
I don't want that to stop.
Nope.
The problem is, it's generally wrong information, and then he corrects it. And so it's like, everybody, I mean, the pricing, remember when?
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, nope, it's going to be this price. And he's like, guys, I was wrong. It's not that price. It's this price. We were premature on that. And then it's, hey, Clone Wars is going to be October 4th. Oh, no, never mind, guys. It's not. We were premature on that. So here's my gut is telling me that they got bought up by Asmodee, however you want to say it. They got bought up by them. They're trying to integrate FFG into the Asmodee way. And I think it's not working as smooth as they think it is. And so I wonder if now they're kind of like, all right, FFG, you just kind of do your thing. Keep doing what you're doing. But the problem is, I'm sure there's some inner politic stuff going on that's preventing them from being successful and having more smooth operational deliveries as far as their products are concerned.
Yeah, it's a bummer. To me, it's just like a big bummer. I really appreciate that Matt Holland is transparent, because a lot of companies will say nothing, and it's good to at least have something. So,
yeah.
I mean, the information that stunk twice. Like, I love the product and I really like FFG, so I just get bummed out that I don't have what I want when I have the release dates get pushed back and back and back. Because at this point, as me playing Legion, I'm in a holding pattern until the clones come out. Like, I'm just kind of waiting for that stuff to come out. So
here's my real problem with this. Is it seems like a larger scale issue, and it concerns me from a business standpoint.
Okay.
And like, for instance, I don't know how well known this is, but there's, so they handed out those grand championship dice that they handed out at Gen Con for the winners of all the major events, the big dice, right? So, from my understanding and what I'm hearing is that there was a big mix-up with that, too, because the Nova, they didn't hand those out. Nobody got them.
Oh, jeez.
Okay? And so what I'm hearing is that there may have been some mistakes there, and the ones they handed out at Gen Con were maybe their prototype versions of those, just so that they could get them out so they didn't look like fools. And now they don't have any.
Oh,
so that's why there weren't any at Nova and stuff. So it just seems like, I don't know if they've switched up how they do things, if the operations got turned over, if they've switched up manufacturers or whatever it is, they're not accounting, in my head, and I could be wrong, but it sounds like they're not accounting for bad things.
Yeah, I suppose. Again, like, I don't know enough about any sort of business transactions like that. So, to me, it just, as an outsider looking in who just wants to play the game and wants to get his stuff, like, it's a bummer. And when I see people who, like Miniatures Market, they're getting their stuff now, I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. I got through my store.
Right,
like,
that's the other thing. People who have ordered from Miniature Market, they're probably getting them within the next couple of days, it sounds like.
Yeah, and like, I pre-ordered it all through my store because that's, like, I want to support my store, and I want to, so I want to do that, and I get, that's fine. I get the discount, right? Sometimes you get discount when you pre-order.
Yep.
And to get them, like, just late or, like, that stinks. So I feel like a little, like, I have no idea when I'm going to get it or when or why other people get it earlier. Like, there's no release date. That's just, like, all over the place. So I feel like there's like getting shell shocked, right? Like a bomb just landed next to you, and you hear the ringing in your ears, and you can't see, and then like all of a sudden you see a core set drop down, but it's not for you, and someone else picks it up, and you see a clone trooper fall over there, but someone else grabs it. I just want one. Just give me one. I just want an Obi-Wan Kenobi. So,
I have something controversial to say.
I
don't even care.
You don't care about the new set?
No. I was like all jazzed. This is a recent development.
Okay.
I was all jazzed about it. Not clones. I don't care about them at all.
Yeah.
Like, on any level. I don't know why. I don't care. I never connected with the clones in the prequels or even in the Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Or Clone Wars cartoon series. I've just never connected with them. I don't care about them.
Fair. All right.
I have zero.
Sure.
Anything for them. But droids is something I've been looking forward to. I don't know if it's because we're just so far out from them being legitimately viable on any level or what it is, but like I've just been like thinking about it, and like, what I wrote that article about the clone or about the droids and stuff, and I've been just thinking about it, but like I'm like, I'm just gonna go back to Rebels or Empire or Rebels, and I'm just like,
Well, the nice thing is you can. Yeah. Right? Like, they're like, when the clones and droids come out, the other factions aren't just bad or obsolete. Like, they're still there.
And I want to say this has nothing to do with the game or with how they're built or how they function. I don't know. My interest is waning, and I'm wondering how many other people that is happening to. Like, Evan, you were just talking about trying to get in 40K guys who were really into droids and stuff, but this consistent delay is kind of maybe
it's
people are like, ah.
Right, because they're so used to the Games Workshop like machine, right? Like it is 2 or 3 weeks out. Here's your article. Pre-order them this weekend. If you don't, you not guaranteed, right? So, like this past weekend, I bought 40K books to update my army. Like, I'm like, well, maybe I'll play this until who knows when these come out, like clones. I'm in a holding pattern until they come out. And then even when they come out, immediately they're going to be a little like, right, you have 3 things to choose from, right? You've got your core, your 1 core choice, your 1 bike, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Just for the start, as soon as it comes out. And then there'll be more choices, and I get that. So like I'm going to get them, and I'm so pumped to get them, but then I'm going to be like, oh, I kind of missed all the choices I had with Rebel. So it's like I'm trying to want my cake and eating it too. But I don't know, I'm just kind of like, I'm getting very, like my zeal to play is dropping, just because I want my new stuff. And then the fact that it's getting pushed and who knows, and it's just like the horizon isn't clear.
Yeah, well, and I think we're in like a tournament lull too. Like there's no major, like you got the kind of the wrap up of all the rally points right in the next couple months, and you have internationally speaking, you do have these big championships. Okay, so I'm not discounting you international folks, I'm just saying it's
for us locally,
right?
Anyway.
We don't, it's just not something that affects us currently. So like for us, there's just this real kind of dip until January, February, right? And I think the same thing happened last year. We went to PAX. We thought PAX last year was going to be a bigger event than it ended up being. And, so right now, like we have some stuff to look forward to, like Kappa Cup coming up in a few weeks. And then, we'll be there. And then LVO in January. But really, PAX is in December. But I don't know. I haven't heard anything about anything for PAX. So...
Yeah, it's I don't think X-Wing's even getting an event at PAX, and X-Wing always gets an event at those. So
when I just saw on FFG's Twitter, they just were requesting for volunteers for PAX to demo games.
Yeah,
so that's interesting. I don't know. It's odd
because normally Cascade Games runs that. That's the name I was looking for a while the other day. But I don't know what's going on. Like I know the next rally point I know of, it's Dueling Grounds in October in Canada. And that's I don't think the clone stuff, it might just be out or it might not be.
Is that Dueling Grounds or is that the Goblin one?
It's Dueling Grounds, and then the Hooded Goblin is in November.
Right.
Which we'll be at. I might be a judge. I just saw a call out that Dueling Grounds needs a judge, so I might head up there for that. I got to see what my work says. Right. But we'll be at the Hooded Goblin. Maybe my melancholy.
Are you signed up? You going to Hood and Goblin?
Oh, good point. I gotta sign up. Yeah, I should probably do that. Huh?
You gotta register. Yeah, because they're doing a bunch of extra stuff. It's big. There's a bunch of like $1,000 in prizes or something.
Oh man!
Like it's a whole thing, and they're doing lunch and like all this other stuff. So I think you got to register.
Did you say lunch?
Yeah. Well, I mean, wait till you see the ticket price. It's not like $10.
It's
a good chunk of money to get in, but I think it might be worth it.
That's cool. But again, we're maybe. Because we live, ate, and breathe Legion for so long now that there's like articles are like the last 2 articles were like for the Luke and Vader operatives were all stuff that was already known or shown.
Yeah, it's all
so
kind of
nothing.
Like, Well, and it's almost like from a news cycle standpoint, they kind of been cutting their legs out from under themselves by doing FFG Live, and then they have Alex and Luke on there, and then they spoil a bunch of stuff, which is incredible, awesome. And we love it. But then it's like, and then like 2 weeks later, the articles come out, and you're like, yeah, we know.
Yeah,
like why wouldn't these come out the same day?
It's interesting because FFG is the only company that I check daily for it's the only game company that I check daily for articles. I just kind of thought about that. It's on one of my hot tabs. I'm like, and if an FFG article comes up, like my Discords and everything just light up for a, like whatever X-Wing, blah, 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 I get everything. Legion, blah, 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 I get everything. So. They've got their market. Just when they don't perform, like it's just more noticeable, I suppose, because they usually have a high level of execution.
All right, we're gonna take a little break here. We have a surprise for you. We are actually we did an interview with Crabbok.
Oh, one One back at you.
Yeah, one back at you. He had myself on, and so inversely, I have him on, and so let's cut to that interview. Enjoy.
It's about time we get some intel. Welcome to the 5th Trooper's interrogation room.
All right, so here is my interview with the one, the only Crabbok. What's up, man?
Hi, how you doing? Or I should probably say hello there, because that's what I would always start out with.
Yeah, perfect. I like it. So I'm sure most everyone who listens to us knows your channel, but if you don't, Crabbok, aka Tim, he's got this amazing YouTube channel where not only does you cover Legion, but also Armada. And do you do X-Wing too?
I do X-Wing, I do Armada, I do some Kickstarter like board games, like anything sci-fi themed usually captures my attention, or anything with miniatures. So a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah,
and Star Wars
and
stuff in general, like movies and news.
That's right, because I saw you did the last ones. You did the lightsaber from building the $200 lightsaber there.
Yes. We did
that was a good
weekend
one
with the kids. We went to Galaxy's Edge, and I spent way too much money. But I am owner of a lot more lightsabers now. I'll tell you. Yeah, I could talk for a little bit about that, because that was an experience.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. And so anybody Tim here, he seems to get all the Legion units before anyone else, and does amazing unboxings. So if you're ever wondering about one of the new units, Crabbok usually has it on his channel. So
usually, I think I've had a couple that were like way before everybody. I think the Imperial Specialists, they never did an article for that. That was the one. Yeah, that was like, because once upon a time I had actually gotten an early, like a review copy of an Armada wave. It was their wave 7, and they hadn't done articles. Half the stuff in the expansion hadn't been spoiled yet. So we're looking at like at least like probably 20 cards that had never been spoiled before. And they just showed up at my door, and I was blown away. And it was like one of the happiest days ever. I'm like, oh my gosh, first off, I get all this new stuff, and it was free. So I had to be like, big thanks to FFG for that. But like since then, nothing. But yeah, getting stuff early. Like if you pre-order from FFG, you're paying top dollar. You're not going to be able to support your local game store if you do that. But they usually ship it to you a day or two early. So that's my secret. Now the world, anybody who's listening to the 5th Trooper now, knows that's the secret. Now I just put myself out of business.
That's right. Yeah, I'm gonna start beating you to the punch on all the unboxings now. You'll see.
You might be able to. I don't know. But
we've done a few, but I don't have the energy for them like you do. You do well on those. I'm just like I start doing them. I'm like, oh God, what am I doing?
It's going to be hard when all the droids come out, though, because one of the things I usually will do, because everything dry fits together so well, I'll be like, all right, and here's Darth Vader, and here's his lightsaber, and here's his head, and here's his blah, blah, blah. Like try to do that with a B1 battle droid. I'm like, hold on, we have to pause the video, and trying to put them all together. It's going to take 5 hours just to record, and letting everything dry, and all right, we got it all done, So I'll have to come up with a different format.
Yeah, I mean, we did that. We did an unboxing of the Clone Wars, and I put Grievous together, and I just was like, and now I'm going to fast forward to this part, and it's just like me trying to put it together. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So how long, I was trying to figure it out, how long have you been doing the YouTube channel now?
I started when my oldest son was a baby, so 9 years, but I've only really been focused on gaming for the past 7. So I started off just doing I had some silly song, because I do music sometimes. I'll grab a guitar, and I've done some silly Star Wars songs and stuff, but I used to record myself singing, and I had one goofy video that was a cover of a song called Get on My Horse. And it went kind of viral.
I know that song.
You know the song? Yeah. Yeah. So I did an acoustic version of that, and I did there's a set part where the girl sings, and I did yeah. And I did an Elmo voice, and I was like, oh, it tastes just like raisins, kind of like that. Yeah. And oh, I can't believe it. And I just did that on your podcast now. So now but it went kind of viral, and I got 50,000 views on it, and I hit like some kind of threshold, and they said, hey, you can like go to the next level with YouTube now. And I was like, oh, well, all right. I don't know if I'm, and then I started playing X-Wing, like not, maybe a year or two after that. And I was like, oh, I already passed. I feel like I kind of got an early in to like being grandfathered into not having to go through all the processes that new channels now have to go through.
Right.
It's so much harder now. So I got in kind of early, and then I started playing X-Wing, early in X-Wing, and like after the Millennium Falcon came out. So I got into that, and there was hardly anybody making content for these games. There was like, you had Will Wheaton had the show Tabletop, and he had a video on X-Wing, and there was like one or two people that had a handful of videos. And I was like, I wanted to just watch it all day long. If I couldn't play it, I wanted to learn. I wanted to see other people's games, and I wanted strategy. I wanted unboxings. I wanted to know what came in each expansion. There was none of that. So I just decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the absence that was there. And so that's what kind of influenced all the stuff that I do for all the games that I cover. And it was just X-Wing, and then it became Armada, and then it became Imperial Assault, and even Destiny for a little while. And those I don't really do anymore. But then Legion came along, and and it's been those have been like the holy trinity: X-Wing, Armada, and Legion for me.
Yeah, and two things, just to take a step back. Now that song is amazing, and there was this great animation that they used to have. What was that?
Weeble?
Newgrounds.
Newgrounds.
Yeah, Mr. Weeble.
Yeah.
Mr. Weeble was the guy, and then Newgrounds was where you could watch these flash animations, and he would always have these insane songs with like, what's that other one? I got a big bag of crabs. Yeah, Narwhal's bag of crabs. Like,
yep. Absolutely. Or the
everybody out there, go look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just ridiculous, and now, I mean, my kids are old enough that they'll see stuff like that, and they'll be like, oh, it's raining tacos. It's just the silliest stuff. But
yeah, and then the owls versus beavers. Oh my God. Like, there's so many.
That one I don't think I've seen.
Oh God. So anyways, go check that out. But isn't it funny, like, how, we've kind of seen this too from where we start. I mean, we started just as a podcast in the early days. And it's funny how when you start doing something as a creator of any content, how it ends up just like molding itself, and it's very organic to how it ends up where you are.
I think
today,
so. I've noticed, like, I've wanted to do certain other things, and they haven't worked out very well. And so sometimes, when you can get feedback, I think the technology behind all of this that gives us those analytics that tell us, hey, this is done really well, and this, nobody cares about that. Like I wanted to do Black Series action figures and a lot more reviews of those, and that wasn't working out. Like nobody was really interested in that. So, and I'm like, well, it's a good thing, because I don't have room for any more of those.
Yeah,
so,
it is funny how the internet will tell you what it wants. Forcefully sometimes.
It's been amazing though. I love the hobby. I love like this whole journey that it's been, because it's this whole thing. I was very much an introvert before I got into tabletop gaming, and a lot of that started with X-Wing. And I would play online games, and I didn't really, I was afraid to go meet new people, and it got me out of my shell. And then doing it on YouTube got me, more akin to, speaking to people and worrying less about what people think of me. I mean, I still care about what people think of me, but if I was that worried, I wouldn't put myself out there on the internet, because some people are just complete jerks about things, and, it's gotten me over a lot of those fears.
Well, I think that's, not just as a creator, but just going and playing these games too. Like, a lot of us, I think, start as introverts, and then you start meeting people and realizing how many cool people there are out there. And yeah, of course, you're going to meet one or two terrible people, but you're going to meet more good people than bad, and it just makes it
easily.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It makes it that much better when you enjoy a game and you find this community that enjoys the game too. It just makes everything great,
Absolutely. It's and especially in a time right now where so much of like Star Wars fandom has become like this. I don't want to say so much, but the volume of the angry few who have just turned, a great fandom, a very inclusive and welcoming fandom, into this toxic, mess. I don't see as much of that in the gaming side. Like people can kind of put their, oh, I don't like this. Okay, well then pick a different faction, then play that faction instead. Pick the faction you want. And so many of these games are offering more.
Well, and
of
I
that.
think it allows you, okay, because like for instance, like when for those of you who don't know, I was on Crabbok's channel about a month ago now,
About a
and
month, yeah.
and you were kind enough to have me on and interview me, and
I appreciate it too. It was wonderful.
yeah, I had a great time. And I think I said we were talking about the movies and stuff, and I said I like Solo, and somebody had messaged me and was like, "I said I like Crabbok. That you like Solo? How could you like Solo?" I'm like, I don't know, man. I just
Really?
did. Yeah. So I was.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, I talked him down.
People like what they want to like,
Right. I talked the guy down, and we had a nice conversation, but he came at me pretty hot. But like, I think what the games do is it allows you to say, for instance, if we take Solo, right? The Mud Troopers in Solo would be an amazing ad for Legion. And it allows you to say that without like, and everyone can kind of agree to that and be like, yeah, the Mud Troopers were pretty sweet, without like having to validate that they liked the movie overall. You know what I mean?
Yes. Absolutely. I feel like you could make a similar comparison for, episode 8. Like, okay, if they do sequel, and I'm sure they will someday, if Legion, as long as Legion continues to be successful and it shows no signs of stopping, I'm sure we'll eventually see sequel factions. And you could easily say, boy, the Praetorian Guard would be a pretty cool unit. And, you can say, yeah, maybe they would,
Right.
I would love to see that. And I'd love to see some kind of team up mechanic. If you saw Rey and, Kylo Ben or whatever he was at that moment, like working together, could you do that? Like they've incorporated that into Destiny now, where there's a way that you can have light and dark side heroes together in certain formats. And, and so like, wouldn't that be really cool to see that in Legion in some capacity? Like you can pull out, it allows you to take what you love. Right. To quote Rose from episode 8, save what you love instead of fighting what you hate.
Yeah, I would, and I think we're seeing that right now with Clone Wars, which is I'm segueing into the delays, but really, but with Clone Wars, right? Not all of us enjoyed the prequels, but there are certain aspects like fielding droids, and is one of those, and Grievous is one of those things where you're like, yeah, this is going to be awesome, and you can kind of detach that from your love or hate of the source material.
Sure. No, I wasn't a big Clone Wars, or I wasn't a big prequels fan. In my 20s, I was kind of one of these stereotypical people who wanted to make fun and tease, and I think there's nothing wrong with having like maybe a nitpick sensibility, as long as you're not trying to like, you just need to have the ideas that, hey, if somebody likes that, good for them,
Yeah, I think I think the thing that gets lost on people these days is the difference between debate and like putting people down, right?
I agree.
Like you can debate, like you and I, for instance, aren't going to like everything the same. We're going to have some differences, but if you're open to hearing me explain why I like something, and I'm open to hearing you explain why you don't like it, and then we walk away and go, oh yeah, that's too bad, but I understand your point, and we're still friends.
You might even learn something. You're like, oh, you know what? You bring up a good point about that scene in this movie, because I hadn't thought of that. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think people need to also maybe acknowledge that, or they don't need to, but maybe it might help if you acknowledge that maybe there's a problem with your favorite movie. Like I love episode 8, but I also acknowledge it's a flawed film as well. It doesn't have to be perfect for me to enjoy it.
Right. And being able to compartmentalize it and take out pieces that were great and say, I really enjoyed that overall, but understanding that other things maybe weren't as great, but it's okay. Everything's
Speaking of things
okay.
that were great, I think the Clone Wars is going to be great whenever it does show up.
Yeah. The tiered approach to delivery is odd on this one, and so some of us got it at I think you and myself included got it at Gen Con. Some people ordered it from Miniature Market, which apparently is shipping this week, and they're receiving in the next couple of days.
So I have to tell you, I have a confession here. So like I got the one core set at Gen Con, and I was really I was very happy with the way FFG was trying to handle that. I felt like the people on the ground were doing the best with what they had. Like as soon as they found out they were getting a smaller shipment than they had expected, they were warning us. Like I was there working for FFG. I was demoing games, Legion, X-Wing, etc. And they're like, hey, we know we always let you guys, get what you need to get, but I've got to warn you, we have very, very few. So if you don't absolutely need something, don't get it. We're also going to reserve it for the players first. And, they handled everything right. But I had an opportunity like on the last day to go get a second core set. And I didn't, because I felt like, well, there's going to be somebody who has a Sunday only ticket that comes and tries to get that. And I don't want to be the reason that they don't get theirs. But now I'm thinking, boy, now everybody's getting their miniature market stuff. So as soon as I heard that miniature market was shipping early, I went ahead and placed a pre-order on miniature market for one more core set, because like I really want to be able to fill the full army, without having to proxy everything. And I haven't gotten a shipping notice yet. So I guess I didn't make the cutoff. I guess.
Yeah, it's been odd, right? Like, so, of course, I think any of us probably who are deep into any of these communities, we're in like 100 different chat groups. And so like, I think even I saw messages today, like some of my group were like, oh yeah, I just got an alert, it's coming in tomorrow, or I just got an alert, it's going to be here by Friday. So I'm
actually checking my email right now as you're saying this. I'm like, let me just see. Refresh F5.
It's a strange thing. And, we talked earlier in this podcast about, I find it odd, and I'm just kind of like thinking about why this is happening. And it just seems like about this time last year, I don't know if you remember, but we saw a huge dip. Remember, there was like 3 months or 3 months of like nothing. Like we didn't know what was going on. I don't know if you remember this. But
you talking about before the core set came out?
It was like around the Veers Leia. When they came out, like we just didn't hear anything for a while, and it was like,
there was a dip in news because they had announced so much stuff.
Yes, yeah.
What surprised me with like other games, so I, coming from X-Wing and Armada, like especially there's a huge contrast between Armada and Legion with that. Like Armada gets one thing a year, right? They had said early that they, like as a rep from FFG had said that the plan was to have an expansion every month. Period. Just every month there was going to be another expansion. I was like, there is no way. And I think I even said in one of my videos, like, there's no way they're going to do that, guys.
Yep.
And I knew the way that the waves, I thought that they were going to release, basically it's like 6 expansions constitutes a wave. And I thought like the first wave was ATST, Snowspeeder, Leia, Veers, Snowtrooper, Fleet Trooper. That was like wave 1 after the core wave and the core set. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was all going to be, in other games, a whole wave comes out on the same day. So I had no idea they were going to stagger releases the way they did. And that bought them a lot of time to, like, I guess, have that lapse in communication like you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, now I think we're getting great communication, right? Like communication's been great, but it seems maybe they're running into some production issues. The question is, do we think it's because they're stretching too thin, like Clone Wars, dewbacks, short? Like there's all these different stuff coming out.
Thing didn't help. I actually just got my dewback replacement base yesterday.
Me too.
Oh, nice! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I had actually went out and bought a one of the custom, the fancy Death Star bases, just so I could play dewbacks in for a battle report I did a couple weeks ago, because I wanted to play the one that I had. and I didn't feel like I didn't want to proxy with like an ATRT or anything like that,
Right.
So I bought, and I'm planning to use those bases at some point when they do, if and when we actually see sub factions, I'll find a good, reason to be like, all right, all my Mandalorians are going to be on the Death Star now or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, I think that was definitely a big kind of a kink in the chain, or I don't even know if that's the right expression, but
sure,
that had to have been a big slowdown, because they joked about it, but they were talking about like how, like people like Matt Holland and Luke Eddy and some of these folks were actually having to go, and I don't know how much of this is jest and how much of it's true, but they were manually having to open every single dewback and put the new one in there.
That would not surprise me, because I think a lot of times we forget, I forget this too, but like a lot of times we forget because we're dealing with the Star Wars IP, we forget that this company isn't Lucas.
Right.
film or Disney, right? Like they're a small company, and I think they still do things in a small way where, maybe they use spreadsheets instead of actual like software for some of this stuff. And so like, I think that can get confusing. And so when you see a big hiccup like the dewbacks, that can actually set you back way further than a lot of us
because there's a domino
think.
effect. You have only so many man hours, and every single person that had to work on repackaging those had another job that they were already staffed and allocated and scheduled to do. And we don't see that. And that's something, and as a company, you don't want to broadcast your errors or your failures to the world because your competition also hears about that. So there's obviously some limits on how much they can tell us and just how clear they can be. And I think that's where people like you and me come in to, in some ways, speculate, but in other ways to inform and like, look, let's manage our expectations here. This isn't the customer is always right scenario. We have to consider that these are human beings and they're subject to human error too, and they're doing the best they can, and it's like a first world problem,
Yeah. And I think, the thing too is like, the transparency lately has been great, but I think it's also been a little detrimental to them where they're like, oh yeah, hey, this is going to happen. Yeah, right, right. Or like, no, the prices are this, they're not that. And then they have to walk it back because, they didn't really get the full, like everybody on board with that statement. And so as much as I've been appreciative of the transparency, it's like, well, maybe just pull back on transparency a little bit and just, and then maybe.
Possible. I think it's a learning process. They're still growing and they're growing fast, but I think you are right about them stretching themselves a little thin. I think it was at the Gen Con at their Q&A when they turned their cameras off. Andrew Navarro was talking because there were a lot of questions. Everybody wants to ask, hey, are you going to do more with this? Are you going to make a miniatures game for Android? Are you going to make another Rune Wars game? Are you going to do this? And he was pretty candid. Maybe it was also for his AMA. It's like, we only have so much production capability. We can only do so many things. So, we're in a situation where the cream rises to the top. And, if something is not selling, it's not going to get prioritized. If we can only make 10,000 pieces of plastic a month, 80% of that is going to be the things that are, that are proven are doing well. And then for the remaining 20%, we have to figure out the things that are moderate sellers and then, try to squeeze in a new game here and there. And so it becomes that's why I think why they do so many LCGs, because those have to be like, you're just printing on cardboard. So those have to be way easier to do than a miniatures game.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, and to source, right? Like there's way more options when you're just printing in boxes. That's way easier to do than like, getting sculpts and trying to figure out how the sculpts work and how to put them together, and then making sure the factory is putting in the right bases. And, it's like this whole, like 3D chess thing when you're dealing with sculpts and models.
And it's a shame. I wish they could make more stuff because, like, I think that's why, with FFG getting the Marvel IP with this new Marvel LCG, I was thinking for the longest time, like, I got to Gen Con and like one of the first people I talked to, like, was like whispering, it's like, I hear rumors about Marvel, and I hadn't heard anything. I'm like, oh, are they going to make a Marvel game? And then as soon as I saw in the brief that there was a miniatures game, but then a whole different studio was doing it. Well, now it started to come together. I'm like, FFG just couldn't. I'm sure if they had the additional production capability that Marvel, the miniatures game, Crisis Protocol, FFG would be making that if they could. I'm sure they would. But I think it's a matter of they can't do it. So that's what opened the door for a whole nother company, which is maybe a lesson to anybody listening. If you are thinking about starting your own company and you have massive, production capability, then this is the time to jump in and get a license from somebody.
Yeah, or connections, right, to that.
Yeah.
I mean,
open up your own factory.
Right. And it's interesting, the way you're saying that. And now it kind of brings that whole thought process. Because one of the things I found interesting about Gen Con was, okay, I'm Fantasy Flight. I think the way they marketed and the way they did the presentation was off as far as the order of how they did things. And then to close on a miniature game that clearly was going to be a hit
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that wasn't even theirs. I found that really strange, but now that you're saying it this way,
I've had so many people tell me, I'm like, what is going on? How much did they have to or did Asmodee force FFG's hand and say, no, your target audience is going to be in this room. You will do this. Like, I really don't know. To be a fly on the wall in that meeting would have been interesting.
Yeah, and it's just it's an odd way to do things. But yeah, so let's get back to Legion.
We're like on all these other games right now. It's like, wait, what is this podcast about? What are we talking about? Yeah,
it doesn't matter. We're usually all over the charts lately, anyways.
Yeah, but nothing wrong with that. It's great. So let's. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So
let's do it.
I talked in one of my other videos. I was talking about maybe like some of these new vehicles that are coming out. And I think we talked about this when I had you on last month a little bit about like, do you think, I was like, do you think terrain is going to change? Do we think, once the Clone Wars comes out, between the B1s having so many more miniatures, you're going to have more plastic on the table. Maybe there's less room for terrain. I thought that maybe these vehicles, and this is, I'm going to speculate, but maybe these vehicles will perform best if they simply don't move or move very, very little. Like that's where they have the strafing, right?
Yeah, the big tanks. Yeah, it's interesting because I guess I have two answers. So there's the competitive kind of where terrain's heading, and then there's the the what we do in our kitchen table,
right?
And I think competitively speaking, we've been heading towards I think originally they wanted 25% of the table to be terrain for a competitive game. And now the community's more, I think we need 35 to 40% because
that happened very, like in the first year, there was like almost outrage for those first Gen Con tables.
Yeah, right. And Nova. Yeah, Nova got hit bad the first. Yeah, that's right. And so, it's interesting because armor hasn't really been in the quote. I'm putting meta in quotes because I don't think there is a meta. It's just what people are comfortable playing right now.
It's not as hard of a meta as other games we'll see. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so I think with the point change recently and with the Clone Wars, I think armor may start making a push. So I think that the amount of terrain may still stay at like 35 to 40%, but I think that you're going to see more of a conscious effort of how it's placed.
Yeah, I could, like, if you have more against the edge, I usually always try to keep, a certain distance. Like I'll look at like what's the biggest vehicle that we're using, like for a kitchen table game, right? If I'm setting up the terrain and we're playing a casual game, I'm like, all right, can I fit, a snow speeder base through almost everything? It doesn't have to be through everything. It's okay if there's like two pieces that are like a barricade's like almost touching a building or whatever. That's fine. But I try to make sure, let's make sure that there's some reasonable pathways for big vehicles to go through. So this way we don't create a negative play experience, because nobody wants a snow speeder that can't land anywhere, right? Like nobody wants that experience. Right. So yeah, I think that'll be fun. And I think maybe if we start seeing, the reason I asked about the vehicles not moving is like, well, what if, if that becomes a thing, because certainly there are certain vehicles, like an ATST doesn't always have to move very much.
Right.
Well, maybe that will pave the way for bigger vehicles that just are designed not to move. Like if they were to do an AT-AT, and of course I know I went there. I took the AT-AT challenge. I went down that road. And now that's what we're talking about now. So let's talk about AT-AT.
Well, I thought we were going to go somewhere more reasonable, but all right. Yeah. Let's
go Mega Walker for the sequel, the Gorilla Walkers, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you look at like the transportation tanks from Clone Wars, those big like droid transporters.
Oh no, you're talking about the orange one, right?
Yeah, that was in Phantom Menace. That's been my dream since I thought that they would be doing clone. Actually, when they did the tanks from Rogue One, where they had the transport keyword, right. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna get transport tanks. Like I was like losing my mind. And so I wonder, maybe that's it. Maybe you plop this tank, it doesn't move, and then you could deploy within a certain range.
No, I think it's
from
great.
that
I love
tank.
the idea of, and I love the way that they went with the tanks, like the ground vehicles that can provide heavy cover, or
Yeah.
even just straight up obstruction. Like you can't even see me.
Yep.
Like now you have a vehicle. Now you have mobile terrain basically. And I love it. And I would love to see them do more with terrain. Like we can keep it at 40%, but how about some more terrain options where terrain can be crushed? Like if your terrain can be removed.
Yeah.
Or thrown.
Yeah.
How about we get a force upgrade that's like force throw, where you can pick up a barricade and throw it at an enemy?
Yeah, I would love that stuff, and that's kind of some of that stuff that's in that Marvel game, right? Like
Yes.
yeah, that would be really interesting for them to bring that in.
Balance
I'd
could be
also
tricky
like,
though, because like, oh wait, do I get to place the barricade wherever I want after I throw it? Or,
right? Yeah. Like, can I spin it so it's advantageous for my army versus my opponent? Yeah, I mean, that's been interesting. The other thing I've been wanting to see more is flying vehicles, because I think there's a number of options, that could be for all factions that are flying vehicles similar to the airspeeder. And I think
Well, it looks
there's
like
a big
the
miss.
hover keyword that they have on these new tanks seems like it could be applied to some type of helicopter function. Like
Yeah.
a lat, and I think a lat would have to be smaller. I don't think you could do a 1-to-1 ratio because it would probably just be a little bit too big. But if you think that, well, it's up in the air, so you can actually make it like a half scale because it's flying above the battlefield, so you don't need to see it in the exact same scale anyway. If they wanted to apply a sliding scale to certain units like that, I'd have no problem with it.
Yeah, and it would be interesting because like the clones had those transport ships where they would like drop the clones on the battlefield, and I think they fit like six or eight, I forgot what it was, but and then they would fly them in, drop the clones, and then fly away. Like,
Yeah.
I think those are reasonable from a size perspective that you could have those in. Those, oh gosh, what were they? Were they TIE interceptors from Rogue One that were flying on Scarif?
Yeah,
Was that what
the
they
Reaper.
were?
The TIE Reaper. I had that where they dropped off the Death Troopers. It's a big it's a big ship, but I mean it seems like some of those things seem like they're better suited to be a terrain piece, but if you do it with a tall flight stand, kind of like a snow speeder, I feel like maybe a little taller. I feel like you can get away with doing it like half scale.
Yeah, and just be like, oh, this is up in the sky. Yeah. It'd be interesting. I mean, I think there's lots of options, and it doesn't seem like they're too afraid to explore. And I think like the R2D2 C3PO is a good example of that, where it's a cross faction unit that does some tricky stuff, and they packaged it with terrain piece, which I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not 100% on that part, but at least they're trying new things.
I applaud them trying new things because that's how we get things that are good. I'm also like, I kind of would rather the terrain piece be separate. Like I would rather have R2 and 3PO by themselves, and then the terrain piece, and then the scenarios that go with it as a separate piece, and then you split the cost.
Yeah, right. Because and I think that's the thing, right? Like, not everybody has $40 to go plop down on one unit when you could easily get it for 15 or 20 if they didn't, bundle
but
it.
At least they're trying to maximize your value by giving you like, all right, I can run R2, and 3PO. Oh, I could run R2 for the other faction. I could run R2 and 3PO for the other. So you're getting like 4 different unit possibilities in just the one pack, which is and a whole new keyword, the whole counterpart system, which I think is one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah, and I think that opens the door for tons of other. So you're right. It's like this. It's a thin line that we want to walk with them, because we want them to explore and to be kind of like inventive with what they're putting out. But with that's going to come some either major misses or minor misses where we're just kind of like, well, I mean, I get what you were doing, but I'm not 100% on board.
Sure.
With that,
now I know you don't like the terrain. I love the terrain. I know how you feel about the Death Star or that shield bunker, and I'm so excited about that shield bunker. I can't even begin to tell you. And it's because I want interior battles. I want us to be doing battles inside, like because I feel like that's a stepping stone towards like a kill team version of Legion. I feel like,
And-
like, all right, this new format, we'll call it Strike Team, and you pick two heroes, operatives or commanders, and maybe they'll even come out with rules for other units. Like, oh, you want to bring a Stormtrooper? Okay, he's going to be a named Stormtrooper, TK123, and he's got 3 hit points, but he costs this much. It's set. I want that. I want to be able to bring a small, I've only got 4 miniatures that I'm bringing to this, smaller battle.
Yeah, and dude, I get that 100%, and I love all those ideas. It's just a hard pill to swallow when I don't have that kind of like end of the path.
Yeah, you don't even know if it's coming
yet.
yet. So like, why should I, invest $70 on something that may happen?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And doesn't affect anything else. Like it's the same as the downed ATST, right? Like I got one of those. I honestly haven't opened it yet. Like it's just not something
I used
I've
mine last
gotten
night,
to.
and it's okay. It's a terrain piece, but you know what? Like by now, most Legion players have a lot of terrain, or they know or they have access to terrain. I feel like with this terrain, and as much as I am an FFG fanboy, I admit it. I'm not a shill, but I'm a big fan. Right? I feel like my criticism here is too little, too late. Had they had all of this terrain available at launch, would have been a game changer, because now they could have attracted a whole different clientele, because so many people were intimidated because they didn't know anything about terrain, and not as many people were like getting on board with the whole 3D printer stuff like some people were. But now, like, so many people have had the opportunity to buy from like Imperial Terrain or Corvus Games, etc. All these, or buy their own 3D printer and learn and join all these groups, these Facebook groups and stuff about getting all these tips and tricks. Like, I feel like everybody who would have done that has already explored other options.
Yeah, well, and it seemed like that thought was there early on, but it just never really materialized. So like they had those first set of mats that they put out, which which was, I think, an okay idea. Like the 3x3 always threw me off, but I understood where like the base of that thought was. Like, we are already making 3x3 mats. Like, this is an easy add-on. You just get 2, and now you got 6x3, and you're good to go. And then they announced all those other mats, but they hadn't really, I don't know where those stand. But it's like you could have put out a mat with terrain, like as a bundle. Like, and you could have had this whole like, hey, get the core set, get this terrain mat bundle, and you're good to go.
Well, yeah, that would have been good. I think those mats that they put out were brilliant from a certain perspective. Like, before Legion, I had played Rune Wars a little bit, and they had flat terrain in that game, and you just kind of had to use your imagination. And these mats have that terrain kind of built into them. Like, you can see, oh, well, this is where the ridge starts. So we'll say, if it goes over this line here, then that means you can't see me. So like, they're kind of giving you an option for that, and I applaud that. But that also makes it harder to put real terrain on, because it doesn't blend as well. Like your new mats, by the way, which look awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Actually, no, I think so the guy I play with a lot, Sean, actually just ordered some of those with the spacers. And by the way, I know you've probably already hyped it up like a ton, but like, I'm telling you, and for all you guys listening, we didn't talk about this prior, but those spacers that you have at the end, the 6-inch, I forget what you're calling them. I'm just calling it sidebars. That is brilliant. That is absolute genius, and I am jealous as hell that I did not come up with it ahead of time. So that's absolutely brilliant, because how many times I've been at a 6x4 table. My table is 6x4. It's fine for me because I have 3x6 playmats, but no, that's pure genius. So my hat's off to you. That's fantastic, and that's good for the whole community.
Oh, thanks. I'll PayPal you your money right after the episode.
Okay. No, but really, I think it's fantastic. So very, very cool. But my only criticism is that you didn't that you put your own logo on there, and you probably should have put Crabbok on there with lightsaber nunchucks.
Yeah,
that would have probably I would have been like, okay, now I can really endorse this product.
Well, for a certain amount of money, you can put whatever you want on it. No, you know what it is though, and I think this is kind of is even though we're talking about us, and it's very aggrandizing, but I think what it is though is that we play the game, And I think a lot of the community stuff that's coming out, like whether it's Imperial Terrain or Legion Terrain or Corvus or whoever, is these people that we all play the game. And so we're there every day, quote unquote, in the trenches. And so you're like, you know what would be great? Like, you know, what if we just had something we could roll out that cuts off the 6 inches instead of taping it down or something?
Absolutely.
You know,
No, that's fantastic. And that's going to work for so many. Now, the only thing I think is like, if you've got that terrain board that has all the stuff like the hills built into it, well, in that case, then you know, but that's a small subset of the boards that are out there. Yeah.
Well, I think these are the things that the community needs to do, because this is something like, if you come from a 40K background or a Warhammer Fantasy background or any of these other mini games, like there's a lot of like ingenuity built into those games of how can I make my battle experience better. And, you know, I think we're getting to that point in this game where the community is really starting to like step up and make things that you're like, oh man, this is great. Like, this is going to make this game so much better by having
like the Fleet
this.
Builder or the Army Builders website, Tabletop Admiral, for example, is like this one I use them. They're fantastic, and they make the game better. Like, if I had to go through my cards manually and be like, all right, what does this one cost now? Let me pull up the PDF. You know, like if I had to do all that manually every time I wanted to come up with a build, it would be exhausting. And having that as just a website, that resource like that, I mean, like FFG should give those guys a cut, right? Because, you know, people that are community that does stuff like that really enhances everybody's world. And, you know, I can't thank you guys and the community as a whole. Like I've got thanks. I got like 3,000 thanks to give out to everybody. So, you know, it's just a great community to be a part of. The Legion community and the gaming community in general is it's awesome.
Well, and I think it was just like it's like a perfect storm, right? Because I think in the early days, like I wasn't there for the very early days of Warhammer Fantasy, but like, you know, I'm talking like 6th, 7th, 8th edition, like you kind of had a lot already built in, and there was kind of these things that you do's and don'ts that were already built in, and you use this army builder, but you got to pay money for it. And, you know, it was like this whole thing, and then you have to have your book on you, and you have to have this, and you have to have these memorized. It's just a lot of crazy stuff. And so I'm thinking that right now where we are today, you've got some of the old guard like myself who have played minis games in the past are kind of bringing those experiences to this, but then you got this whole new generation of, you know, not just, I don't mean generation by age, but I mean a new generation of war gamers that have never played war game, but because of Star Wars are into it, that are bringing all this ingenuity into the game and going, well, why do we do it like that? Why can't we do it like this? You know, and you're like, oh, well, yeah, I've never thought about it.
It wasn't like that in 40K. Noob.
Right, right.
I see. I never played 40K. I played Kill Team like one time. I kind of tried to explore it a little bit, and I was like, no, I like Legion better. I don't want to do that. Although I like the minis, and I like the, you know, the distribution, or like basically I like the minis for 40K, but that's about it. That's the only thing I really like. Other than the fact that they've been able to build a game that has been going on for years and years and years and years. And I think that's what a lot of people want out of their investment. And so I'm hoping that Legion has that staying power, which actually brings me into a really interesting question for you. Is it like basically at a certain point, what's too much, right? Like we have like 3 different core, or technically 4 now, 4 different core options for Rebels and Empire. You know, like, well, suppose Legion is out for 5 more years, which, I mean, hopefully that should be no problem. Mm-hmm. But like at a certain point, you know, like when do they slow down? When do they say, okay, we have enough? Like, this is are they going to get to a point where you say it's a complete game now, we're done? Or do they just slow down? It's like, all right, cardboard expansion this year. So, you know, a new or like a supplemental, a new personnel option for, you know, for each faction, or, you know, like, or do you just saturate so much? I feel like X-Wing got saturated, and there was like, I want a missile boat. Well, you've got these 5 or 6 different options, all for the exact same role, you know, and then the subtleties between each ship ended up being, you know, in some cases very minute. And so I kind of don't want them to rush into that. You know, so I'm like, do you think there's going to be a certain point where, you know, they're like, all right, we're done? or maybe will sub factions or something be like their way out of that?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think what's going to happen, and you may start seeing it now with Clone Wars, where before I think we were all buying both factions for the most part. Like everybody was like, "Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah, I'll buy that." And at some point, we're not going to be able to afford all factions. It's just going to be or play them, right? Like, okay, maybe you can afford them, but you're never going to play all of them, and so you just pick a faction or two factions. And it'll be interesting to see if the game grows enough where they can sustain with us just buying one faction's worth of minis.
Yeah, that will be surprising like if it ends up doing that, because I've always been somebody that will buy every faction. And now with X-Wing having 7, I like that's a game that I was playing everything, and I would buy everything and I would try to play everything. And when they came out with like the Clone Wars and now we're up to 7, I am like overwhelmed at this point. I'm like, I just can't keep up with it all. And granted, if you only play one game, that's probably not as big of a deal, but I play like 3 games regularly. On top of that, there's also board games and other gaming that I do. So I just stick with the Republic for X-Wing now, and I'll still buy the other stuff. It's because they're great collector items. They're like, I used to love Micro Machines back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But and I also buy them for the channel so I can do unboxings and reviews and things like that. But I can't like build lists for like the First Order anymore, and I can't build like all these scum and villainy lists anymore. Like maybe one day I will, and if the kids want to start playing it with me, I'll have all of that available for them too. But I don't expect most people to be able to maintain 7+ factions, or depending And I'm really interested to see how sub factions are going to work in Legion. I love the thought of it, but really all we have is that it was is an idea. We don't even know if it's even in planning right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because I think most games that have kind of sustained like X-Wing or 40K or Fantasy Age of Sigmar now, when you get into it, when somebody wants to get into it, you say, yeah, don't worry about, you're not gonna be able to get everything. Just pick the faction, like something that speaks to you, whether in X-Wing if it's Rebels or is it Imperials or whoever it is, and then in 40K is it Orcs, is it whoever it may be in 40K, and you just buy all into that faction, or buy you build an army on a list builder and then just buy those units to put that army together. Yeah, it's real interesting. So I guess the question to you is, do you think that there's going to be enough source material to continually sustain factions?
I think so. At least for a long time, as long as they slow down. That's the problem, because like what they've said, because I cover Armada heavily. Armada is probably still my favorite game, and it's they've pretty much come out and said, we're running out of ships, so that's one of the reasons we're slowing down. They didn't say it in those exact words, but they said there's a balance between something that just because something is canon doesn't mean that they're really going to make it, because it has to be economically feasible. People have to be like, if they decided to do creatures, for example, they can do a Rancor because everybody knows what a Rancor is, or at least a certain percentage of Star Wars fans, a high percentage of Star Wars fans will recognize a Rancor. But if they were to do something less recognizable, like maybe a Lothcat, now they have to do like a more serious cost benefit analysis. Like, well, is a Lothcat going to sell enough to justify the research and development and the sculpt and all of this? Or let's say we want to do a Krayt Dragon. Well, how many Star Wars fans know what a Krayt Dragon actually looks like, as outside of just those bones that were in the background of A New Hope, right? And so just because something is canon doesn't mean they can really do it. So while there's a lot of canon stuff, they're running out of the highly recognizable stuff. Now there is, like you mentioned, Mud Troopers. I think those are a fantastic option that really fit, a great slot for the Empire. They're running out of Rebel options for more core, but then again, there's more stuff. There's more options that are going to be coming out. There's comic books. I haven't read all of the comic books, so I don't even know what's canon. But obviously, there's not that much that's going to be super recognizable. I would love to see some downed pilots. I want a unit of like X-wing pilots, in the orange jumpsuits. Like, you might get away with them being special forces. You might get away with them being core. But give them some kind of specialty functionality. Maybe they're not the best sharpshooters out there, but they have some kind of play with objectives. Maybe they can call in an airstrike, or something like that. I don't know, but that's recognizable. So that will sell. When you get into sub factions, that's where it really opens up, because now you can get into Saw Gerrera and his partisans. Now you can get into Mandalorians, and then you can probably, it all depends on how they want to do it, because I would imagine they could reprint certain things or just come up with a card that lets you borrow. Like for Mandalorians, if they're their own if they're bound to Empire and you can mix them, match them with Empire, that's one thing. But if they can only be played within themselves, then you have to be like, all right, well, Boba Fett, can he also go into here? Can Sabine also go into here? And if somebody is in a sub faction, to call it a sub faction means that it's different than its own faction. So that means you probably have to be able to use them with a different with the parent faction as well. Like Jar Jar Binks would have to also be a commander for the Republic, as opposed to also being able to work with the Gungan sub faction, for example. Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So I think when we think of factions traditionally, right, it's different. See, it's so weird because it's different for Legion, where just in the prequels alone, like how many different armies are there? Like there's the Gungan army, right? Like that's a whole faction on its own. Like you could build, like based on all the weapons and everything that they had in the first movie, you could have a whole army just of them. And then all the stuff from the Clone Wars.
All those different factions that formed the Separatist Union, the banking clan. Like, I don't want to field a banking clan army, right? But maybe somebody does.
Right.
Yeah, I think you do have that for the Galactic Civil War time frame. Because there's certain things I think some people overlook. I mentioned Saw Gerrera and his partisans. I think they serve as a valid candidate. They'd be a small sub faction, right? But alternatively, you mentioned Solo. Well, how about those Marauders and Enfys Nest? Those could be a sub faction. They were. I always wanted to see them do how they did Outer Rim. It was a truly multiplayer game. I always wanted them to do a board game that was like Birth of the Rebellion, because the Rebels were basically built of a whole bunch of sub factions. You had Mon Mothma and her kind of peacefaring, pacifists, and you had General Dodonna and his fleet. You had Raddus and his Mon Calamari. Raddus and Akbar, so you had the Mon Calamari. They were their own sub-faction, right? And they all came together. And that was one of the things we saw in Rogue One also, like all the different sub-factions kind of arguing over, trying to be united. So I think you definitely have that in the Rebels. Some are more recognizable than others. I think Saw Gerrera is a great option. Enfys Nest is a great option. And we already know Luke and Alex want to do Enfys Nest, or at least Alex really wants to do Enfys Nest. And that would be an amazing model too. I mean, forget about it. And then the swoop bikes too. So there exists that option, but the Empire is where you have a harder time. But I feel like the Mandalorian in its post Return of the Jedi world is going to give us Fringe World Imperial remnants, and that will probably make Imperial subfactions more recognizable.
Yeah, and I think too, Alex and Luke were on Notorious Scoundrels a few episodes ago and did this sweeping interview. And one of the things that they had mentioned was how Disney IP basically comes to them and says, hey, we're looking to focus on original trilogy. So if you guys want to do something in that line, that would be great. So it'll be interesting to see once Disney Plus comes out, and you have like The Mandalorian, and then you have the new season of Clone Wars, right? The final season of Clone Wars, I guess. And, you have all these other pushes. I think a lot of people were talking about maybe next year at Gen Con, or when they announce something next year, maybe at Adepticon, that like they think it's going to be like the new trilogy factions. And I don't think so. I think they're going to stick in the Clone Wars era for a while, because I think there's so much to explore there. And I think that's kind of sort of hot right now.
I don't think you go into I think it's unwise to jump too early into sequel trilogy factions, because we don't just have to see episode 9, although that is the first step. The first step is definitely like, let's absorb episode 9 and have the fans have time to kind of break things down, and people will analyze, and and we're like, all right, well, if this ship beat that ship, but that ship beat this ship, then where does everything rank? And then there'll be all the Wikipedia, the Wikipedias, all of that. So you'll have time for the community to absorb all of the different ships and infantry and weapons and vehicles and everything that shows up. But then you all have other things. Resistance Season 2 is also coming out, and that is probably going to introduce more sequel faction stuff. Then there's going to be books. There's going to be stuff, going into Snoke's backstory, Knights of Ren backstory. And like, what you don't want to do is have this situation where, we made it so early. We made this, we made this mega cannon, this mega walker that was in episode 8, and we made that the most powerful vehicle, and we gave it like 10 red dice. And all of a sudden they're like, well, okay, well, we saw in this book that came out that was like in the mid-range of their vehicles, and now all of a sudden it throws everything off, and now you've got point creep or power creep rather. Point creep. I guess point creep could be a thing too, but yeah, so it just throws everything out of whack, and FFG's really kind of screwed up a little bit with when they started doing X-Wing with the sequel trilogy, because they did X-Wing stuff before the movie came out, and they screwed a lot of that stuff up. And I don't know if it was their fault or maybe Lucasfilm just didn't tell them enough, but they made Poe as just a moderately good pilot when he should have been like an ace, and a lot of little things like that you didn't have a big enough picture. You didn't have that broad scope to really put things in perspective.
Well, and I mean, with the third movie coming out in December, quite frankly, the first 2 movies here, have we really seen anything that you're like, oh yeah, they could definitely build some big armies? I mean, it's just more stormtroopers.
Yeah, and I don't want like the Resistance's launch vehicle to be those little sand skimmers, because the Resistance didn't use those. That was a hey, we happened to find this. Like, no, what was the Resistance's mainstay? What were the things that they actually used? They had a whole military base on Dakar. So what was, their actual equipment? We don't even know anything, because everything we've seen from the sequel trilogy has taken place over 2 days. We have a tiny glimpse into what's going on here. So yeah, we need a lot more. I think you wait until like 2022 before you really get into the sequel trilogy.
And if anything, those skimmers would actually be rebellion, right? Because they were old.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
yes, I would give you a high five right now if we were in the same room. Good observation, because that's exactly what they were. Yeah.
Right. No, it's really interesting. So what are your thoughts on the how many Clone Wars core sets we should get?
Well, I did mention I got a second one. I think there's a tremendous advantage in getting 3, primarily because you're going to save twice as much money. You're going to save a lot of money by doing that. I think you also are going to miss out on a few of the upgrades that come in those individual, like if you wanted to be able to run 6 B1 battle droids, you're going to want to, because they're cheap. If you're going to want to run Obi-Wan and in 6 clone troopers, which there's not anything else going to be available at launch. So if that's probably the go-to option. A bark speeder or 2 and 6 clones and Obi-Wan, maybe like 4 bare bones clones just for green tokens, and then 2 clones like totally geared up, maybe something like that. Right.
Sure.
So yeah, to do that, the cheapest way to do that is just to get the 3 cores, or maybe split cores with somebody else. But yes, there's going to be some upgrades that come that you won't be able to get. Well, some of those are going to come in the upgrade pack, and the rest of those are going to come in the follow-on expansions. You're going to get Phase 2 clones that are going to have the stuff that you didn't get already. You're going to have, or the B1 battle droid expansion and the clone trooper upgrade kit. So everything that comes in those standalone expansions, just like in the initial launch of Legion, you're going to be able to get in the next stuff you're going to buy anyway. So there's really no reason that you have to buy those unless you really want like a smoke grenade on launch day.
But you really, but you got to think to yourself, I like where you're heading with this, is because this is a debate I've been having with myself. It's like, I want those upgrade packs. And then I'm like, why? And it's like, because I want the electro binoculars, and I want, and I want smoke grenades. And then it's like, dude, you're going to pay $25 or $35 for smoke grenades and electro binoculars.
Yeah, I don't even. I think honestly, I want to run fragmentation grenades on my clones. Like, I totally do. But yeah, no, and that's the thing too. Like, all right, how many of these games are you going to play? Like, when you're getting started, in the wait for the extra expansions, because it's probably only going to be like maybe 2 months before we start to see those extra expansions finally trickle out. Are you going to play in any major regional events where you have to have the card, or are you okay with like maybe just, I've only got one copy of this, but all right, I'll proxy it for a couple more. Like, I mean, I used to have a problem with proxying, but in this kind of example, I see no problem. Knowing that I'm going to have it anyway, I'll proxy it for a casual game. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, of course. And I think, and I think it's one of those things too, where like, if you got some friends that are playing and you are going to a rally point or a regional or a grand championship or something, you just be like, yo, dude, I need to borrow those electro binoculars for, for this event.
Absolutely. I might end up getting like the B1 or not. I already did the B1 because I had no other option because it was Gen Con, but I might get the Phase 1 Clone Troopers and a Bark Speeder expansion. I might do that just because of, for unboxing purposes, but really there's nothing for me to show you because it's the same. At least in the Legion original release, you had an alternate sculpt in those.
Yes.
Like, so there was like a reason to do it, but like, I just can't really see a good reason. I might actually just not do it because it's like, see the core set unboxing. It's the exact same thing,
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that was something we noticed early on because like the speeder bikes for Imperial, if you got the expansion, they had different sculpts.
Yeah, that was an actual advantage to doing that. And as far as I'm concerned, from like a journalistic, standpoint of trying to document this stuff, I think there's value I can bring to my viewers by saying, hey, here's what the sculpt looks like. Do you think it's worth it for you? You can look at it real here in high definition, but for something like the Bark Speeder, well, there's no difference. I mean, you're going to get one different upgrade card, but I don't really think that's, I think you get linked targeting array in it. Well, I mean, yeah, you're going to get that in the next expansion anyway. So, or in the card.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take on that. And that's something that like I said, I've been struggling with myself. And so for those of you listening, I guess it's going to be up to you and where your priorities lie. And, as far as like the core sets, being able to split those with a friend or, maybe a couple friends, and then you can get 3, if you can't afford them. But yeah, I think there's a lot of options there, and not being forced into those upgrades is a good observation.
I love that FFG is doing this, by the way, not forcing you to buy stuff that you don't want just for upgrades. Like you should be buying a unit because you want to play the unit, not because you want a card that comes in there. And so like they have made so many improvements with Legion beyond all their other games that I really appreciate what they've done here, and it's a fantastic idea, and they're doing that, and they're doing it well.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm just to kind of circle around to where we were talking before, I'm just happy that it seems based on their attention they're giving Legion that it must be doing well for them, and so I'm just happy that we have a community that's supporting this game and buying into it, and we're selling it and we're talking about it, and it's just going to get better because the more we buy and the more we talk about it, the more they're going to be invested in it.
I've got one for you though. Here's why you might want to get the B1 battle droids or the clones. If you see somebody that comes out that has Entourage, B1 battle droids, so you can get 7. Like that, I really want that. Like that's something I really want to see. Like some kind of droid commander with Entourage B1 battle droids, and so you can run 7, and he automatically gets to give the order to a B1, setting up your whole chain each turn. Oh, 7 core. That would be fun though. Like especially if you come out with like other units at the same time that like have multiple attacks and can be like, all right, well, I'm going to attack 3 of your cores with Arsenal 3, or something.
I just think there's the door is wide open, right? Like I don't feel like they've shut themselves out of anything. It's just all open doors and windows that you can travel through.
Exactly. Like you talked about with the transports, right? They have transport open and transport. That means they can have transport closed, which is perfect for all that stuff. Yeah, so they've really done a good job future proofing this game, and also with the rules reference. I was looking at Armada's rule reference, trying to look up one of the keywords that came out like 2 years ago. Still not in there because they, like some of the older games, they had a different deal with Lucasfilm that they had to approve a rules reference guide. And so like it's only once every couple of years that you get an updated rules reference. And whereas Legion, they have a different deal and it's a living document. So now they can update this stuff in real time. And it's just honestly being able to look up the rules is such a necessity. And for another game like Armada, for example, where you just can't look up the rules in real time, you have to like, I better go find the physical rules insert that came with this expansion I bought 2 years ago. And that's the only reference for where the rule is printed. It becomes a real hassle.
I would agree. And there's just so many things that they've done correct. And I think we can sit here and complain, which we do sometimes, about the little things that end up getting messed up. But I like dewbacks. But
yeah, it's okay. It's nitpicking can be healthy because it'll give them an opportunity to
hold them accountable. But then I think we also on the other side have to admit all the things that they've done right with this game and all the amazing things this game has to offer.
Oh, very much so. And the points change couldn't have come at a better time too. Regardless of how you feel about that, and I understand if it frustrates some people, but I like the way they handled it, and I love the fact that we're going to continue to see stuff with printed costs on the cards, because that's just, for me, that's huge.
Yeah, and like they said, I mean, really, the only people it truly affects is the competitive scene. And I think it was Luke who said, like, hey, if you're a casual guy playing at home, the points are fine. Like, you don't need to worry about the points upgrade. So we're not going to change the card.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm hoping to see, the errata packs. And what I think they ought to do in going forward is whenever you buy a card pack, I don't know if they can get this into the current card packs, but future card packs, because I'm hoping there's something we see like a card pack every year or something, is that they put all the errated cards from the previous year in the card pack.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
I've seen other games have done things like that before, and and they don't factor that into the cost of the card pack. Like it's like, oh, here's one of each, so you have it for reference. Yeah, that would.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But yeah, I'm not as worried about the points on the cards. I mean, because from a competitive standpoint, like you hand your opponent your list on a piece of paper, a list building approved by the by the event, and then rarely do you look at the numbers on the card. And you're like, oh,
absolutely. And
we have this was 200
it too, and like the guys now, it'll become a problem if if the community all of a sudden just stopped doing that.
Well, yeah, I mean the list builders in particular are very important, and so like for any of them to just like drop off the face of the earth or stop doing something would be real bad for us.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody else would pick up the torch. But there might be some, like, all right, we got like 3 months while this guy's writing a new code, and we'll have to figure it out. First world problems, though. That's exactly what it is.
But I mean, we have an amazing community. Yeah.
Yes. So I know we're kind of running on the time, but I want to tell you a funny story real quick about Galaxy's Edge. If you were okay to segue into this, because this was really fun. All right. So I took 2 of my boys to Galaxy's Edge this weekend. And it was awesome. And because I live here in Orlando and I've been wanting to go and I hadn't been able to go. So we go there. We did the lightsaber thing. We did the Millennium Falcon ride. There wasn't a whole lot to do, but I dropped a ton of money. I bought the Ahsoka Tano replica lightsabers, and they're amazing. If you like sabers, they're really, really cool. And so I was very, very thrilled with it. One of the things that's cool about a park like this, and most parks, is people kind of role play with you. The people who work there, the cast members. And so there's certain things like when you're buying your pass to go do the custom lightsaber event, and it's called Savi's Workshop. They're like, and you want to keep this here, and they give you like this disguise, almost like you're going into Fight Club, because you don't want to talk about it, because there's stormtroopers that are roaming, the park, and they don't. So I had my boys there, and once it was his 10th birthday, and the other one was 7, and so I'm like, and we don't want to tell the stormtroopers about what's going on over here. And then the cast member was like, oh no, we definitely don't want those bucket heads catching wind of what's going on in our little corner of Batu, right? So like, it's cool. They're all role playing with you, and it kind of, enhances the experience a little bit. And I loved it. And the kids kind of got a kick out of it too. So we do the lightsaber experience. It's great. And everybody's like, you get this pin that tells you like what kind of saber you built. And so like different cast members will see if you have that pin, because it's a $200 thing to go, and for a lot of people that's pretty steep. So they make it a point to like talk it up, like, oh, I see you've chosen the path of nature. Might I ask what kyber crystal you went with, and things like that. And so, and it's really nice that everybody's kind of acting and they're performing. And it just makes the whole park that much more magical. Well, I thought I was going to be like, oh, let me be really slick, because like I was surprised. I was asking certain people things and they were responding in character. I'm like, oh, okay, we're all role playing here. Okay, no problem. We're in line for the Millennium Falcon, and there's this guy, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give this guy a real softball. I'm gonna give him the chance to shine. And so we walk in, and I see a cast member in the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question about the Millennium Falcon? And he's like, oh, yes, I'll try to answer you. And I'm like, well, is it a fast ship? And I'm thinking, all right, he's perfect. He's going to, say, oh, you've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? He responds, he's like, oh, yes, it's very fast. And I'm like, oh, you're supposed to say it made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, dude. I thought, I'm like, well, you know what? He tried. He just didn't know. I guess he hadn't seen Star Wars or whatever, which is, maybe he was assigned to a different park that day. That's okay. He didn't screw up. All right. He still tried to stay in character. He just didn't have the right line ready to go. So we get all the way to the front, and the Millennium Falcon ride is pretty cool. You've got 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 2 engineers. It seats 6 in the cockpit to try to, and so I was assigned up as a pilot. My kids, were gunners, and they wanted to be gunners. I'm there. We're about to go on, and one of the cast members is like, all right, like before you walk in, he's the gatekeeper, and he's like, all right, have any of you guys ever flown a starship before? And I'm like, oh, okay, he's role playing too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and so I decide I'm going to role play back with him a little bit. And I said to him, I'm like, oh, well, sort of. And he's like, what do you mean sort of? I'm like, well, the simulators, and he's looking at me like he's seen a ghost. He's like, what? I'm like, oh, well, all right. I've flown, some of the bigger ships, some of the bigger Corellian ships, but never one of this size, and he's just like, dude, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, I thought we were role playing. No, this is my first time here. And so then he's like annoyed with me, and he's like, all right, so you need me to tell you that up moves the ship up and down moves the ship down? I'm like, sure. He's like, all right, well, that's what you're going to do. You're going to go into sit down, and the joystick moves it up or down or left or right. I'm like, all right, thanks, dude. Thanks for just ruining my immersion. I was like so ready to just LARP all over the place and like lightning bolt, all that. I was in the zone, and I ran across the one guy, and he started off like, have you ever flown a starship before? Somebody says that to you, you think they're, kind of being in character, but
right, they're part of it. Yeah.
No, he meant, have I ever been on the ride before? Yeah, I don't know. So I tried to, it just didn't work out as perfectly. But overall, the park was cool. I didn't get to try the blue milk though, because the kids were hungry and they only wanted pizza, and they didn't want to eat any of the weird alien sounding food they had. But I would go back. It was great.
So what was overall your favorite part?
The lightsaber thing, and then the gift shop, because the gift shop, well, there were a lot of gift shops, but the gift shop was insane. Like they have all the kyber crystals, and then all these, like you can buy the tunics and the Jedi robes, and every individual piece you can have it, get the right size so it all fits you. It's not like this one size fits all Halloween costume. It's like you find each individual piece to your exact specifications, and like if you've got money to spend, you're gonna have a great time. If not, maybe you want to wait until like a couple more months when they open up the other ride,
So did you feel like when you were there, did you feel like minus the role playing, but did you feel by like the looks and the ships and the like setting that you were in like a Star Wars universe?
I in a Star Wars theme park, at least. What made it hard for me, kids with me, and so like I'm looking over my
Yeah.
shoulder. I didn't have my wife with me. I just took the two kids by myself. So like I didn't have backup. So it's harder as a parent when you're responsible for two little ones that like to wander off. So I wasn't really able to get, full immersion. So like I think it would probably be really cool to go back with friends, like adults, like, and just do like I'm a grown up fan and become a kid yourself. But like having to be responsible for kids, you're probably going to be a little more distracted because there's so much stuff to see, and I didn't get to see everything I wanted to see. So yeah. I could have stayed there. I could have stayed there all day, even though it's still kind of a smaller area, but they have a lot more expandability easily built into that park. It'll be great. Like by this time next year, I'm sure it's going to be like even better.
Yeah, I can't wait to go check it out.
Yeah, I definitely recommend the lightsaber thing though, because as if you are a lightsaber like fan, I would say like the Hasbro ones are $150. So granted, it costs you $200 to build your own, but first off, you're getting, I think, a much better saber that you're personalizing. You're also getting like this 20 to 30-minute experience that is easily worth it because the experience is very cool. I actually published a video of the whole experience. So if anybody listening wants to, like, is curious, I have it on my YouTube channel. My son recorded it though, and he was he was not the best cameraman because his fingers kind of got in the shot sometimes, but he did all right, and then also on top of that, like the blade is removable. And then you can customize the kyber crystal, so you can swap out the kyber crystal and change the color of your blade if you want to go buy extra kyber crystals and stuff. And then they also give you like a sling that you can hold it in as well.
Oh, that's
so you
cool.
can put it on your back as well. Yeah. So like which is also good if you're traveling there and you need to put this thing on an airplane so it doesn't get dinged up or whatever in your luggage.
Yeah.
So it's just, like the value, I think it was definitely worth it. I think it might even be worth a little more than 200, but that's only, because of the cost of other lightsabers on the market, especially if you go into a higher end one like Ultra Sabers or like Vader's Vault or all these other high end lightsaber companies. They're trying to compete a little bit with those. And I think, the price point is very, very good.
That's cool, man. Like, yeah, I think I can't wait to get down there just to check it out. And I definitely want to do the saber. And it's funny. I've always loved Star Wars, but like playing Legion the last year has really just kind of brought me even deeper into Star Wars than, maybe I was the last few years of my life. But like, it's been great. And so with this new Disney thing, and I can't wait, man. I'm loving it.
Soon too. It's a good time to be a Star Wars fan, honestly.
Yeah, it really is.
All right. Well,
cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. For everybody listening, go check out Crabbok up on YouTube. He's got tons of videos. Whatever you fancy. You like Legion, you like Armada, you like X-Wing, you want to see them build a $200 lightsaber? Go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on.
Dude, thanks for coming on. Once again, I had another blast. So this was awesome.
Awesome. I had a good time too. Thank you. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I will let you go.
Yeah, so that's Crabbok. He's a nice guy. I was really happy to be on his platform, and so it was nice to have him, like, to reciprocate that kindness and have him on here. So, like we said in the interview, go check out his stuff on YouTube. He's got some great videos. He always beats us to unboxing,
Son of a gun.
But
son of a gun.
So, I forgot to kind of mention this at the top of the podcast, but our mats are up for pre-order. So you can go pre-order now and get in on the mat fun. We got mats and we got sidebars. We got some combos of both. And if you are a store, or maybe a group of humans that is in a country that is not the United States that wants to get together and put in a group order, really, group orders are kind of the only way I can get these things out of the U.S. So go up to thefifthtrooper.com, go to the game mats tab at the top of the page, and you'll see an order form for group orders or wholesale orders. And then to the right, you'll see the mats for sale, and you can pre-order those. And, we're looking at a couple months for those to come in. But if you get in now, that's going to help us kind of make that order and get that done. So check that out, and get yourself a mat, guy. or girl.
Or just whatever. It doesn't matter.
Or
Buy a
kid.
mat.
Or old
Whatever.
person.
Pre-order a mat. But
whatever. Just you know what? I do want to say the nice thing about these are they're not just for Legion. The mats can be played with any game. So Bolt Action, 40K,
Yep.
whatever tabletop war game you got going on, these mats can be used for. So check them out.
Cool.
Yeah. So what's up, Evan? What else is going on with you, buddy?
You said you've been building some lists?
Yes. So I have potentially joined Invader League.
Okay.
I am on the wait list, but it sounds like I might make it in. So I've been toying with some lists.
All right, hit me.
Here's one of my...
Time for me to...
Not one of my best, but one of my favorites, if by name only.
To go full try hard and rip your list apart. All right,
So
let's do
this I call Earthquakes and Knee Shakes.
Okay.
This is my list. Earthquakes and Knee Shakes.
I'm in. All right.
All right, I got Darth Vader.
All right.
This would point... So Invader League has
All
the current
current,
changes in, and I think they're legal now anyways, right?
Yeah.
So okay. And then they're using cards and stuff from the...
Articles.
From the articles
Yeah,
as well.
so before they actually are
Yep.
on the table. Yep.
So, I've got Commander Vader
Okay.
with Saber Throw and Force Push.
Okay. Fair.
I have 2 Dewback Riders with the Blaster Rifle, the T-21, which is the 4 white, 1-3 with critical 2.
All right. Good stuff.
Okay. I have 2 Shore Troopers naked.
Okay.
I have a Shore Trooper with a medical droid.
Okay.
And I have 2 Mortars. And then I have 3 Scout Strike Teams with Sonic Charge Saboteurs.
Okay.
I have, for command cards, Implacable, Vader's Might, New Ways to Motivate Them, Pin Down, Master of Evil, Darkness Descends, and then, of course, Standing Orders.
Okay.
I'm calling this Earthquakes and Knee Shakes. So what, the concept behind this, if you will,
I'm waiting. Yeah.
is the following.
Okay.
So, with the Darkness Descends, that's the
Yep.
Vader 3-pip card
Get to put 'em
that
anywhere.
allows you to basically infiltrate with Vader with a Scout 1, okay? So the idea behind this list would be to get Vader into business quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's recover the supplies. Maybe I want to hold down a section of the board. Whatever it is, infiltrate him in. Then get the Dewback Riders in a position where they can get their, like maybe use Spur and get them up to support him where he is. So Spur is, while performing a move, you can gain a suppression token to increase your maximum speed by 1.
Okay.
So, I could get them
Pretty far up.
pretty far. And then they have a range 3 weapon
That's
and
not
they
bad.
have Relentless. So, like, they're going to be able to shoot after they
Move,
move,
shoot,
right?
yep.
So, potentially in one round, you could move speed 3. So, you would have a speed 2 movement with Spur, then speed 1, and then shoot.
Yep.
So, I mean, and now they're on a medium base. So you can get pretty far with them.
Yeah.
And then lay down some suppressive fire. And then have Vader just do Vader things. And then kind of come up with the strike team saboteurs, kind of cover your trail with some mines. So, like, if you need to do a retreat or if you need to, like, pull the box back behind your, whatever you need to do there. And then have the Shore Troopers kind of cleaning up and the Mortar Troopers moving up and shooting and maybe even doing some fire support with the Dewbacks.
Okay. Do you see yourself getting beat at range? Like, what do you think the Shore Troopers are good without their extra gun?
I think so. So, yes.
Because they're 50-50 on black, right? But not counting the surge, so...
Yep. And I don't think they're more of support in this list. That's how
Okay.
I kind of saw them. They're more of a park and create fire lanes use, where the Dewbacks, Vader, and even maybe the strike teams a little bit with the saboteurs are more of your forces that are moving up to, like, cause trouble, and then you start pulling back, and then that's when the Shore Troopers kind of pull out and start.
Is this a 12 activation army?
This
I
is
started counting through my head. 1,
it's 11.
3, 4, 5, 6.
It's 11.
8, 9, 10. Okay.
Yeah. It's an 11 activation army with
Sorry,
Vader.
with Vader, I yawned and like thought about it for a minute. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, it's no joke.
So okay, you've got the activation control.
Yep. And it has a 10-point bid.
Okay, it's high. All right.
So you're definitely gonna have blue player.
What's your answer for armor?
Great question.
I guess just hope Vader gets to it.
Vader. Yeah, I think
guess hope he
Vader's your
gets there.
answer for armor. Sure.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Well, and so kind of the dewbacks, because both their razor claws, which is three red, 3 white, and their weapon have critical too.
Okay. So you're hoping you roll surges. Surges are crits. So 2 out of 4 on each die.
I think you're hoping
not
on
2 out of
those,
4,
but really
2 out of 8.
Vader's your anti
Okay.
armor.
All right.
So anyway, okay, so that's the first list I was kind of looking at. Like,
Okay. I'm just asking questions. You're throwing out some stuff. I'm just
All right.
shooting back.
Here's another list.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
This is 10 activation.
Okay.
Vader, saber throw, force push. Veers with electro binoculars. 3 sets of stormtroopers with DLT-19s.
Okay.
A set of naked shore troopers, a mortar trooper, Bosk with hunter, and 2 strike teams with sabs.
Is there a reason you're not putting force reflexes on either of your Vaders?
Yeah, I never liked it.
Force reflexes?
Yeah,
Okay.
I get it.
Oh, do you get it though?
Yeah,
Do you deep down get it?
I mean, kinda. Yeah. It just seems like a lot of points. I don't know.
I think it's only 10 now.
Yeah, but still.
All right, man. I'm just asking questions.
So this one is $7.98.
Okay. I do like the goggles on Veers.
Yeah.
The goggles, they do nothing.
Well, I mean, here, and, so, like, and then having Bosk, Veers, and Vader in there, I just think it's nasty.
Bosk is just good.
Yeah.
Bosk is just straight good. I think, so next to Luke, he's one of the best single units in the game. Like, for what I do for my point cost is he's just so good.
Yeah. And I like the mix of command cards with this, too. So, like, I got a maximum firepower, implacable, reptilian rampage, new ways to motivate them, lying in wait, and darkness descends.
That's good.
So, like, your plan would be use darkness descends, once again, putting Vader right in the mix, and then using Bosk and maybe the mortars or even the DLT-19s with the stormtroopers to just, like, recovery fire for Vader.
No, sure. I mean, so anybody who sees someone put a Vader down on the table, expect Darkness Descends to be in their command hand, and they're going to play it the first turn.
Infiltrate.
Yep. From when that unit comes out, there's a 99% chance you're gonna run to that. Yeah, because it's good. It's straight good.
So that's the other one.
Okay, I think I like the second one.
Oh, I'm getting. Oh. They're gonna get even better.
Oh, yikes!
All right. So here's an 11 activation list. Krennic, strict orders, electro binoculars. 2 shore troopers naked with med droids.
Okay.
2 stormtroopers with DLT-19s.
Okay.
Death trooper with the DLT-19 in their config.
Okay.
2 E-webs with barrage generators.
Okay.
2 strike teams with the sabs. And 2 mortars with comms relay. I like to call this one, let's get suppression now.
Let's get suppression. No. That's pretty... Actually, suppression is a... So X-Wing had an issue where stress was weaponized.
Yeah.
To a point. And it was really obnoxious. Luckily, you can bring answers in your list to stress that aren't like...
Sure.
Just anti-stress. But that's good. I mean, I don't have like anything sort of inspire my list. I'm going to be real sad.
Yeah,
when
and I mean,
mortars
like,
start pounding me.
Droids, right? This list won't matter to them. But another way that, I think this list is tough, that it could eat droids for breakfast. But also the suppression in this list is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, droids don't care about it until they do.
Right.
Right? Like, until it's time to run. So that's, okay. New favorite is the third one.
Okay, here comes another one.
Oh, no.
Are you ready?
I see okay.
Okay, this is a 10 activation list.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yup. Yep. With Veers, improvised orders and aggressive tactics.
Okay.
ATST, Elite Armor Pilot, Twin Blaster Cannon.
Okay.
Assault Tank, Elite Armor Pilot, and the
pintle.
97C Rifle Pintle. 3 sets of Shore Troopers naked.
Okay.
3 mortars, and an E-Web team.
You really like those naked shores, huh?
I do. Yeah. I think they can be good. I got to play. I saw somebody play with them, and I was in the Avon-based team league, and I had droids, and he played a 13 activation lifts with naked.
Excuse me, what?
With naked shores, and they were like eating stuff for breakfast. It was crazy how well they were doing.
Damn, I like aggressive tactics in here to give them the surge for either attack or defense. Just so they can get some more damage in.
So that's kind of my, and then letting the tank and the ATST do tank and ATST things.
I mean, right, because you just put veers between them.
Yeah.
And you just keep handing off aims.
Yep.
I almost, with the ATST, maybe you could, how many points is this?
798.
How much is the pilot that after you make a full move, you get a name? Is he 5?
10.
Oh, he's 10 too?
No, he's 5. Yeah, you could put him in.
Because I think you do that in the ATST.
Yeah, let's see.
Amram.
Yeah.
What do you have for points?
Arbmab. Yep. So now I'm at 793.
I'm just making noises and I'm hoping their names. G guy.
Is his name Ma'am?
So okay. What else could you put on? I guess. I mean, the problem is you don't really need the points, I suppose. Scroll down. Let's see what. Because I'm looking at the cards on the side here. We're using
Oh yeah, we use Legion HQ by the way.
Yeah, so we're looking at the cards here. Okay. I mean, you've got
a lot.
Yeah, I still think you do Amram with ATST because you're not as dependent on. Because you're gonna have to be moving them around to get up to that range 3 with your side gun.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty clutch actually because it's a free action. So instead of aim and shoot, you can like move, get an aim for free, and then shoot. You get a free, like you're kind of action cheating a little bit.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think it looks pretty. I think that one and the second or third one.
I have another one.
Okay. All right.
Are you ready?
I'm going to be.
I don't remember if this one was good. Those are the only ones I remembered. This last one I don't remember what I put. Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh.
This one's a 13 activation list.
Holy smokes.
Are you ready?
I'm trying to be.
And it's not the 13 activation lists I played against. This is completely different.
Hey man. Even if it was, I'm impressed.
Okay, you ready? Veers. Yeah. Aggressive tactics, strict orders, electro binoculars.
Got it.
Okay. 2 shore troopers naked.
Okay.
Mortar trooper. Shore trooper with medical droid. Nothing else.
Okay.
2 mortars with comms relay.
Okay.
Okay. Bosk with hunter. 2 sniper strike teams. The Royal Guard and 2 E-Webs.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
That's
13 activations.
That's just a lot of things to kill.
Yeah.
Like, as a guy, when you see someone put that down on the other side, it gets almost disheartening before you even start. You're like, okay, right? Like the cores aren't going to be doing as much damage, but they can still surprise you once in a while and be very sad that you ignored them. Yeah,
not a lot of answers. Not a lot of answers for armor in this one either.
You got Bosk.
But you got Bosk, yeah.
Bosk wants crits. Bosk want crits. No, I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. I still think snipers are okay.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 to 5, you just put them on. So say you get key positions or something,
mm-hmm.
You can just leave 1 or 2 to babysit it, and they can still affect the battlefield away. That seems solid too, man.
Well, and I mean, here's my thing. Here's my thing with shores. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is you give them orders, then they get aim tokens. So
yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so yeah, okay, they're 50-50 on their dice, but okay, so
you'll probably have 2
I give them an order. Okay, they get an aim token. I use veers, and I give them more. Like I have, so in this list, I have 3 shore trooper, right? 3 main shore troopers.
Yeah.
So they all get orders. Okay, they get aims. Then they all give orders to either the mortars or the E-Webs, and then I can have veers give them aims, or I could give 2 aims to the shore troopers.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Or 3,
I'm
right?
To see it now.
Yeah, well, electro binoculars with veers, that's 3 aims.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Nasty.
Yeah, that's pretty good. All right. Starting to agree a little more.
But yeah, so and then this one, I felt like this one has the best opportunity. This and the suppression one has the best opportunity against Tons right now, because you got the guard that can kind of linebacker them. Plus, you got a lot of stuff that's going to shoot them on their way in. And Tons just, they don't like suppression.
Yep.
So if you can suppress them up before they can even really start doing a lot of damage, you're going to be, in good shape. And then if they start getting close with this list, you just toss the Royal Guard in their way. And then I also like this list because you can use, I only have one Medroid in this because you can use the guard to like pull stuff off of things. You know?
That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know, too, that, man, you got a lot of lists at me. I think that first one's going to be bad, but I think
you're going to be bad, nerd.
Good.
Tell me, earthquakes and knee shakes. You're saying that one's bad. Wait till you have Vader and 2 dewbacks coming down on you. What are you gonna do? Where were you when the dewbacks came?
I was on my couch. It was 3:30.
A lot of people are, and I just because they're not released yet, but I just feel like people are sleeping on dewbacks. I think they're going to be stupid good.
Well, the problem is, like,
they're not going to be Tauntaun good. I know everybody's talking about Tauntauns right now and how great they are. You know what? Screw you and screw Tauntauns.
Whoa.
Dewbacks.
Whoa. Look, let people get some of those Dewey boys in their hands.
No,
okay?
Dewbacks all the way. Tauntauns can kiss my butt.
Oh, wow. Okay, hot take here on the 5th Trooper.
Tired of hearing about Tauntauns.
Well, the problem is they're like the last new thing. Right? Like the last
Shore
new thing
troopers are the last new thing. We should be talking shore troopers like it ain't no thing.
Shore troopers came
Chicken
out,
wing.
but they weren't like radically different, right? And that's why people still talk about Tauntauns.
So earthquakes and knee shakes, you're down on right now.
I think the other ones sounded pretty.
So it sounds to me like you're like in the ATST assault tank double feature show, or the 13 activation veers and everybody kill you show.
Okay, I always like an ATST. Let's just get that out there. So
hey,
if you
man,
got one.
You see it. So here, I guess I didn't really talk about it, but like my thought with the ATST tank is, guess what? I tossed that E-Web, that one E-Web where you're like, you brought one E-Web onto the tank and hit the tank and the ATST comes strolling up on you.
Yep.
And now, guess what? E-Webs can move twice.
Yep.
So you disembark, move, and boom, you are in position.
Okay, all right, that's pretty good. I almost bought a second tank the other day because I've been reading about like the double tank list. That's like, and it just sounded fun.
You can borrow mine.
Yeah, it just sounds like fun. Like I might be in on that. Just again, like I'm in such a holding pattern until the new stuff comes out that I see stuff, and I had an opportunity to get a good deal on some Tauntauns. We had a sale at our local store, and I just didn't. I'm like, I want because I'm saving that money for the clone stuff because I got to get.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 cores plus about 2 sides, and then there's you probably want like 4 of those specialist packs. You might not use everything in there, but you have the extra options.
Electro binoculars.
You want the options, right? That's the big thing. So want 4 of those plus the tank whenever that comes out, plus Rex whenever he comes out. So it's and I'm sure Commander Cody's coming down the road too. So I've got him. Like I'm trying to save my money for that stuff, but I want to keep playing Legion, but I don't want to buy anything until it comes out. So I'm in this weird like limbo zone, but those lists sound good. I was building a Hoth list. I was just like Luke, 3 vets, 3 of their side guns, 2 Tauntauns, and a 1.4 cannon. And I thought it'd be fun to make it like a diorama. Because that's pretty popular to make. Like, so you bring the list as a diorama, so you've got that to show off when you do like a paint thing. Cool. And so you do like the trenches, right? Like Luke in his outfit from Skullforge, from the T-47. I think that'd be really cool to do and kind of make it just like my fun whatever army.
Yeah, that's I wonder. That's a good idea. We should like put together themed lists for like demoing at the store, or like if we're gonna have. Like that would be fun to do. Like because
you could do Vader, Snowtroopers, E-Webs.
Yeah.
In snow.
Veers.
Yeah, Veers, and that's fine. And then you can even do the ATST if you're looking for shock value, like cool looking on the table. Vader, ATST, Snows, E-Web, and then you have Luke, 1.4 cannon, Rebel Vets, a couple side guns and some tauntauns, and it just has to look cool, right, to get people in, and then you can start like.
And like the Shores and the Death Troopers and Krennic. Now you could build a Rebels or a Rogue One Scarif list.
Yeah, take Jyn. The problem is Rebels don't have as many Rogue One-y options. They've got Jyn and Pathfinders.
Yeah.
Right, where they don't have like Death or the Shores. Shores are just so iconic looking, right? Like,
yeah.
So, but you could do Jyn, Rebel Troopers, a couple things of Pathfinders, her. Some Sabs maybe, and just do like you're an operative army, right? Like you're fighting maybe make a base and have the base really decked out, and then have them kind of like all over the place, like rebels from all sides.
You could do a great Scarif on one of our new mats. We have a beach mat.
Full circle, baby.
We also have a desert mat if you wanted to do a Jeddah City.
Oh yeah, or
which we have a Jeddah City.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Roses are red, violets are blue. Why does everyone want to go back to Jakku? You could do Jakku.
Good.
Just put some big wreckage down there and you got it. Or it can be Tatooine.
So, yeah, our desert mat could be used for Tatooine. Could be used for Jakku. Could be used for Jeddah. Could be used for the deserts in Africa if you're into bolt action.
As seen on TV.
Buy our mats. Buy our mats.
But no, cool. Like, I've been thinking about it because I haven't been wanting to play as much, so I'm like, what can I do with my Legion stuff to make it still cool and fun?
Well, I think the problem too is, I wonder, you and I used to play before we recorded episodes, and I'm just in flux right now, and so like all my stuff is torn down, but like I think we'll get back there. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's fine because I still like have passion for it, so I'm not like completely out. I'm not like
I think it's funny, and you guys out there write into us and let us know where your head's at, but like. It's funny, Evan and I talked a little bit before the podcast today, and like, I think we both just feel in this slump right now. Not that we're not into Legion anymore, not that we're not
just
playing.
Kind of a dry season.
It's just there's just this weird lull right now that we're kind of all in. And I wonder if everyone else is feeling that, or if it's just us specifically, but it just seems strange that you and I were just talking, we both were
like we were just kind of like, I don't have the drive to play as much as I did. Again, X-Wing, I got this X-Wing regional at Just Games next month, so I've been wanting to play X-Wing to get ready for that. And there's nothing really, like, I'm waiting for clones, but I'm like, I don't really want to play my Rebels right now.
Well, yeah, right. And I think part of that is what we were talking about at the top of the podcast, is about like, there aren't any real big events going on right now. Like, all our kind of groups aren't playing heavy right now, and so like hopefully that'll pick up in October. It generally does.
It's just you get those
September
seasons.
Was kind
you
of a slump month.
Right, no like exciting new news articles. I know I just complained about news articles way ahead of time, and I still hold myself to that. But if they did more of the, if they put out a news article and you knew in like 2 weeks it'd be out, like that'd make the hype higher.
Yeah, and I think once we get the table set up and everything here, that we'll be able to play.
Yeah.
Different types of missions, and like what we were just talking about with like Hoth versus Hoth army, or like Endor versus Endor army.
Yeah, maybe we'll just start. Maybe we'll stream some like themed armies. Just
somebody requested. There was a listener requested. They wanted us to do the downed ATST. They wanted us to do the bunker when it came out.
Yeah, I'd love to use it. I painted my downed ATST. I get weird with painting. I normally don't like it, but like the land speeder and the downed ATST were two things where I bought to paint. And everything else, I just don't want to paint my infantry. I just want to paint those.
You know what else I think we should do, too, is Kevin over at Imperial Discipline, he put together that 500-point format.
Oh, yeah.
We should try that, too, and like
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need a re-energizing. I think I'll be in it again with clones, because I've got this paint scheme in my mind where I saw some art for Tron. This guy made Star Wars, but Tron. So he had Darth Vader, and he had like black, but like hot pink, right, eyes and saber. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And so I was looking at clones, because I was just going to do them white and black and just make them look like clones. But I'm like, well, what if? So whatever's white, you do black, and then whatever's supposed to be black on them, you do like a neon color. And I even bought the premium bases I can make look.
Oh, yeah.
Because you did the Krennic's base. Like, really, yours look cool because it was black and you had white lines on it. I'm like, well, what instead of white fill is like neon blue?
So for those of you at home, that's a good topic real quick. If you get those premium bases that they have, what I did was I got a gloss spray paint. So I just sprayed it with the
Yeah,
gloss.
it
It gave the
good.
gloss to it already. Then I just took a fine paintbrush and went through with white and just traced all the lines on there. And then that's...
That looks real legit, because I was looking at the even make, so I wanted to do neon, so I wanted to make them look like they're coming off the grid.
Yeah.
Right? So I had, I was going to paint them all, so like black with the neon color, and then I saw, I think it's called Dork paint. They make metallic paint, but not just metallic, but like that purple that looks to green sheen, like in a
I know
car.
what you're talking about, yeah.
And so they make a whole line of that, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
That'd look cool on like the tank. So I started like, I'm excited. Maybe that's why I'm getting grumpy about these clones not coming out, because I want to
these ideas, yeah.
I want to paint them. Yeah, I want to paint them.
Yeah.
And I want I want to do it. I just like, come on.
Yeah, and I mean, for anybody at home, that's how I did the Royal Guard too. Was I hit them with a gloss red, and then went over them with the matte
Yeah, they look good, man.
paint, and then it looks like armor. And you could do the same with stormtroopers or clone troopers if you want that glossy. You hit them with a gloss and then go over it with your other paints, and it kind of they're more satin, so it kind of brings it down a little bit.
And so I thought about making my Obi-Wan look like Jeff Bridges from the newer Tron movie.
Yeah.
I thought that'd be kind of cool.
It was a good movie.
Honestly, it was very underrated. Like, I get it was kind of like, oh, he got the girl at the end, kind of weird, like ending, but it was Tron, man. I thought it was fun.
I remember watching that in IMAX. We drove all the way because we didn't have an IMAX here, so we drove out to Rochester, like an hour and a half away, to go see it in IMAX.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, and then I funny story about, they made an endless runner for Tron, and I liked the movie. I'm like, oh, try it out. So I had the #1 score on that on Xbox Live, but the only reason I had it is because after a while, after about 42 minutes of playing, it hits a kill screen, and it just stops and just kills you no matter where you are, and it gives you a score. And I'm like, I did the best. No one got as good as I did. Not realizing that I just hit the kill screen a little higher than everybody else. And so people got above me. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll beat them. But it's this massive waste of time, because to get the kill screen, you're playing for 45 minutes just to maybe not get it because the game dumped. And I emailed Disney or Disney's like software channel, because that's who we said to contact. And I'm like, hey, this is an issue, blah, blah, blah. And like, nah, man, we'll see you on the grid. I'm like, excuse me? Like, nah, it's fine. We don't see a problem. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I...
maybe that was part of the game.
Yeah, right. Maybe that just hit the kill screen. But, no, maybe missed. So that's where I kind of got the idea. As I was going through some of my old games, I saw that color palette, and I saw that art, and I'm like, oh, that'd look real cool on clones. And we got Jeff Bridges. Luckily, Clone Commander Cody... Not Cody, I'm sorry. Rex.
Yeah.
Is he still in his armor? So anybody with a face is going to be trouble. I guess they're just going to be like a guy in the grid. But yeah, I'm kind of in on that, so I'm just want my clones.
Yeah, buddy. All right, well, hey, man, that was a good episode.
Not bad.
We did it. We were worried.
Yeah, it's
I'm not gonna lie to you guys out there. We were worried about filling the time, but here we are.
It's rough because there's just not a ton.
There's stuff going on, but not really. It's an odd time. But anyways, yeah. So that's us. If you want to see us in person, we will be at Kappa Cup.
Yep.
I believe they're going to 25, but they're almost full now.
Oh, dang.
But we'll be there. We're going to be bringing a table or two, and then maybe PAX. I don't know. I haven't decided on PAX.
Yeah.
But then LVO, and, around town. All right, everybody. See you next week.
Everyone, stay rad.
Join us next week for another edition of the Fifth Trooper Podcast.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.